Mikael Seppälä, and welcome to the workshop related to building blocks of innovation ecosystems. I work at the Laurea University of Applied Sciences in Finland, and I'm also active in building the Finnish systems thinking, systems change scene in an association called Systems Change Finland. Generally, I could say that in Finland, we don't have a lot of systems things going on, increasingly more because we and some other organizations that are active around the topic have generated a lot of buzz around the topic, but still in Finland, we're very much in the beginning. So not necessarily top of the world, and we don't have any inspirational people like Indy. And the other angle I was thinking of using to introduce myself is that I know Indy, so I used to work at the Finnish Innovation Fund, Sitra, and I invited Indy to speak at one of our events and in a workshop. And during that meeting, I took Indy to the Finnish Ministry of Finances to speak with the civil servants over there and get this type of really visionary systems approaches to the place where the money is actually. And Indy was telling about his ideas about building feedback loops from. So when the Ministry of Finance gives finances to different type of things, Indy was talking about this building feedback loops so that different types of value come back to the system and how you can measure all of that. And the civil servants were looking at him and they were saying, well, our money, it works so that every 4 years we have a new government, and then they decide how to use the money, and then we help them to allocate it wherever. And this whole idea of financial flows was very difficult. And so in that meeting, I was trying to be the kind of bridge between Indy, who is very visionary and thinking very systemically, and these guys who are in a very established, very conservative environment, trying to get things to work. So that's basically what I'm trying to do in society. And in the last years, I've been especially working on innovation ecosystems, and I was thinking it would be nice to give you a short talk. I'll talk for a while, and then have a discussion with you guys on topics that might interest you related to it. So building blocks also means that if Indy was talking about the 2050s or beyond, I'm going to try to speak about more about what's happening today and what the really day-to-day struggles are related to these topics. And as background, I had the opportunity when I was working at Sitra, I had the opportunity to work on innovation portfolios with these cool organizations that are driving the topic. So UNDP was there, and Climate Cake, where Ina is working, was present and narrate, which is part of the Cognitive Edge network. We had Tony Quinlan over there, and we had people from Cora Foundation who are really great at the methodology that both UNDP and Climate Cake are using for innovation portfolios. And then I was able to write one of the first publications related to innovation portfolios called Radical Uncertainty Requires Radical Collaboration, and what the role of innovation portfolios is in that. But my main outcome of that workshop and that project was that it's actually much more important, like Indy was saying, that it's much more important to get the people working, not have cool portfolios that do the change, because it's not the portfolios, it's the people who will in the end of the day make the change. So this is the situation where we are at globally right now. So we have people on the streets very concerned about different types of topics. One of them is climate change. And there's a lot of what Indy was also saying, that's a lot of feeling of not having enough agency, which means that then we go to the streets where things necessarily don't happen, but that's the way we show and build our agency. And at the same time, maybe that is a symptom of the fact that our current capabilities and practices aren't sufficient to tackle these grand systemic challenges that we have in society. So a lot of the work that we're doing in society, like these people in the Ministry of Finance that I was mentioning earlier, this focus on single point solutioneering and getting the money out there without thinking about the systemic natures of them. And so being able to tackle these systemic challenges requires us to catch up with the impact gap that requires transformation from different types of organizations and individuals and all of that. So we need systems change to be able to tackle the systemic challenges. The first thing I was gonna speak about is a few mind shifts. Indy had a lot of comparisons between back then and in the future, and I was thinking of opening up a few mind shifts related to understanding ecosystems. So the first mind shift I'd like to mention is shifting from this type of linear to complex perspective to innovation. So this was the foundation basically of the innovation portfolio work that we were doing at Sitra. So the point is that instead of having funding a bunch of things in society and hoping that there is a silver bullet among all of the things that are happening, we should actually start not investing in the confetti, but start building the spaghetti, meaning that we should have some kind of logic behind the multiple different interventions so that they work together to tackle the leverage points in the system. And part of the spaghetti building is actually focusing on building the long-term relationships between the actors in the system. So it's not just working on projects, but it's also taking the long-term perspective into the people who are and different organizations that make up the system. So that comes back to complexity. So complexity is relational. So we should really underline this, relational aspect of systems work. And Ian Schoons and Andy Sterling, they wrote a great book a while back where they had this quote, which I think is really great in underlying the relational nature of complexity, which is that uncertainty of whatever kind is by definition not a condition of the world that simply is out there, but it is relationship of what is out there and those who what we know and who is doing the knowing. So I think when we start to understand and look at these different relationships, then we can start really embracing the complexity approaches in practice. The second mind shift that I think underlines this innovation ecosystem work is that we need innovation management. I've been trained as a designer. I've done experimentation work in the government, and usually those innovation projects fail. They don't achieve the success that they were intended to have. So that the innovation portfolios is a way to create some kind of logic between the different projects, experiments, and so forth. But like I was saying, maybe it's more important to look at these innovation portfolios and projects within innovation ecosystems instead of individual organizations. And yeah, like I was saying about the traditional approach to innovation is that we have these innovation curves that usually look a little bit like this, and we somehow assume that once we get over the chasm, then everything else will follow. And I think this is a very linear perspective to innovation, so which has the inbuilt assumption that yes, whatever we are developing, it will somehow cross the chasm and somehow become the new norm. Virpi Oinonen, who makes these great Business Illustrator comics, she's also from Finland. She has this better picture of the innovation curve, which looks like this. So there are those first innovators, first cool people who are doing stuff, and then there's the chasm. And there's this old joke that 70% of projects fail to achieve their targets. There's this number that 90% of startups, which everybody is looking at, that those are doing all the cool innovation work, they actually fail. And if you look at innovation methods, experiments, and stuff like that, then the numbers are even worse. So so this is the main point behind why we need to focus on innovation management. Another shift in our innovation thinking is that maybe we have our traditional view of innovation is that we have these, you know, cool startups, cool innovation teams within organizations, cool people in general, who you know are doing this type of bottom up innovation, and some of them of course succeed and end up becoming the new Apple or something like that. But like I said, most of those types of efforts fail. So I think increasingly what we're seeing in society and many places globally is that we are thinking about these middle out types of innovation, where we start with the current regimes, meaning the established relationships between different type of institutions, which can be techno-scientific markets, industrial networks, whoever has power in society, and whoever is established, whoever are those established players, and we try to bring them together to, you know, create some kind of visions of what the future should be like, and also not just write those good old strategy papers, but also develop practical ways of getting towards the future. And what we still, I think, are seeing a little bit less is that the macro level, where policy and innovation systems are working to create, you know, missions or goals or such. On that level, we are not still very good at financing this type of, you know, middle out approaches, where the key players within certain domains are able to make the governance decisions needed to really take the issue forward. And third mind shift that I think we should keep in mind when shifting our notions of innovation towards something like systems innovation or systems change is that we should shift from this type of short-term to long-term perspective. Here's one picture from this cool book called The Evolution of Social Innovation. There's this one really cool article about national parks in the US, and this researcher was looking at the different type of actions and activities that led to, you know, national parks becoming a thing in the US. And like you can see, he's starting off in the 1830s, and then there was a lot of things happening in the end of the 1800s and in the beginning of the 1900s, and still like the issues have evolved. So this means that for systems change to happen, it's not enough for us to, you know, look at the 3-year project that will solve everything, or look at the 4 years that the government has power and and so forth. So we should be able to shift to an even longer term perspective that takes into account really the not the budget and not the, you know, strategic terms, but rather the time spans that are needed to create change. So Anna Bernay, who is over here, she defines system change as the emergence of a new pattern of organization or a systems structure. And if you think that, if you like frame innovation in this type of manner, you start to understand that for, you know, many of the societal institutions and many different organizations, and also the individuals, to change the way that they act in society, it's not something you can get done in a couple of years. So why do I think innovation ecosystems might be a good frame to, you know, for systems innovation and systems change, and what are the building blocks of innovation ecosystems? This is adapted a little bit from Snowden's Kinevin model, but it actually has another angle. So we have some narrow scope problems. So those are the things that we can solve with our maybe traditional innovation stuff. And then we have these broad scope issues that I was showing, which might take, you know, a decade or others. So one complicated challenge that was solved already in the 1960s was to fly a rocket to the moon. So it took a long time to, you know, create the science and do all of that to get there. But now we have another challenge nowadays, for example, reducing plastic in the oceans. And doing that requires, collaborating internationally and inter-organizationally to create, these new patterns of activity that could help us deal with those types of challenges. And that's where maybe innovation ecosystems might be relevant in bringing these different parties together and help creating the opportunities for them to work with uncertainty. And if you compare innovation ecosystems to what has been, what is in the same scene as them. So we have these innovation labs. They're based on bringing stakeholders together to develop something and learn together. Then we have hubs and networks. Those are like, really early collaboration between different organizations, different individuals, where the point is, to create the foundations for communication and activities. And then a more, advanced form of networks are these collective impact networks. There's a lot of great cases related to those, and in those, they have common agendas that they work towards for over a long period of time. They have some kind of measurement things, and then they have these backbone organizations that support the whole network to fulfill their goals. Innovation ecosystems still take, one step forward. So they are really more. They're not necessarily community driven. They're more public instances where you can have forms of funding, portfolios, platforms, RD&I processes, and start building, the ecosystem capabilities between the different organizations so that they can collaboratively tackle the larger problems. So this middle out perspective is really important in this area, because it helps us, bridge these different levels. So first of all, we have the systemic level. So everything that is happening in the society related to a topic that we might model with a systems map or something like that. And then we have, the network level, which means the people and actors and organizations that are working with the topic that necessarily don't know each other up front. And then in the bottom, we have the ways of working together. So how do we build trust? How do we develop experiments? What happens, really on the grassroots level? And the middle out actually helps us, bridge these three levels together, so that we can have, bring together the networks that are needed to have a systemic impact, but also create the adaptability and the relationships on the grassroots level that, build the relationships and innovation learning capability. And related to innovation ecosystems, we currently have three predominant forms of ecosystems. So one is knowledge ecosystems. There the focus is in creating new knowledge and also new technologies. They're usually driven by academia. And then we have business ecosystems. They're focusing on, creating large markets and taking a global view. So they're driven usually by companies. And innovation ecosystems, they usually, try to operate in the between of these. So they take something new and they try to create new pilots, new experiments, new ways of, testing out what might become the new norm. And usually innovation ecosystems are run by public organizations or maybe companies that are dedicated to the topic. And a good thing to remember related to innovation ecosystems is that they're really formed out of a diversity of different types of actors. So this picture just shows the different types of actors that could be relevant in a certain domain. So you need the companies, you need the universities, you need the financiers, enablers, you need the cities, you need the users, and you might sometimes also need the partnering ecosystems and also the decision makers, regulators, and others to work together. So this is like the starting point in innovation in ecosystems. And the difficulty there is that there are differing time spans and logics in value creation. So Josh made this great picture related to service systems that bring together these different aspects of a system, but making this happen in a context where you have academia and companies and so forth, it's very, very difficult. So another aspect of these ecosystems is adaptive management, which means that usually the partners who are participating in these ecosystems, they are changing. So you have to plan for change, and the partners might change in different phases. So in the beginning, you have a handful of organizations or a few organizations, and in the different phases, you are either growing the ecosystem or maybe focusing it into different parts. So that means that one key thing you should take into account when starting innovation ecosystems is resilience. So you need to build leadership throughout the ecosystem, so that even if some partners leave the ecosystem, there are enough partners existing who can take up the angle. And good point to remember is that when you're thinking about ecosystems that can support systems change, there's not just one ecosystem, but there are multiple ecosystems, meaning that each ecosystem has a certain amount of partners who you can convene. And this picture on the left shows an actual 10-year process where different types of events were happening at different levels, and how many different ecosystems might be related to that. So the viable cities in Sweden, they actually say that we should have open interfaces, think in terms of open ecosystems that are of course bringing together certain communities within their own domains, but also connecting to the different ecosystems and their domains that can have the impact on the whole. And good thing to remember related to innovation ecosystems is that they have different phases. Here's one example from developing knowledge to business ecosystems. And what's going on there. In the exploration phase, when you're developing new technology, it might take a long time. You might have to, base it on RDI funding, so because you don't have any revenue streams coming from that. Then in the experiment phase, you start having, a few startups, a few spin-offs, a few new projects that start working on it. And then in the expansion phase, you start having, these real business ecosystems start coming in, where they're starting to think about, how do we really scale this up? What do we need? What type of capital do we need to grow this ecosystem and so forth? And in this established phase, there are already a lot of multinational companies working on topics, and they're really established, and they're thinking of how to renew the markets and how to embrace the next upcoming things. And here's another picture of the same type of thing. So this is really a nice way of communicating, the impacts and outcomes and activities of these ecosystems in their different phases. And a good thing to, when you're thinking about the process of how, an ecosystem grows to where it is, that's where ecosystem facilitation or convening or what we call orchestration is very important. So because the most important thing is not necessarily in ecosystems is not to do stuff. That's what is done in co-creation. The main point in ecosystem work is to bring together different organizations, explore common opportunities, build the governance and organizational capability for the ecosystem to work, and not just write nice strategies and go home and forget about it, but actually develop different type of portfolios that connect different project areas or leverage points or whatever, or areas of effort, whatever you want to call them, and start launching them so that some actual things start happening that are at the same time strategic, but also take things forward. And this process is from Click Innovation. It's an organization where I'm working with in Finland. That they've been doing ecosystem orchestration in the green technologies area for 10 years, and this is what they say is the main things that they are working on. when they start to bring together, you know, organizations that are companies and academia and different type of players. And this same organization has done some really cool work in establishing these practices. So they published this ecosystem playbook just so that people could have, you know, canvases and workshops templates that would support this type of process and facilitate these discussions between organizations. And a good thing to remember, like I was saying earlier, related to ecosystems, is that they should operate in this open area. So once it's closed, it's not necessarily an ecosystem because it doesn't have the interactions between different players. So the people at Click Innovation, they say that ecosystems work best when you're, you know, trying to explore some kind of pre-competitive landscape where you need to, you know, tap into the know-how, data, competencies, materials, infrastructures of different type of organizations to get an idea of what is happening. And then once the innovation ecosystem work is done, then you can launch into, you know, business ecosystems that have, you know, these contracts and revenue logics and all of the stuff that goes into, you know, creating businesses. Another building block of innovation innovation ecosystems is of course portfolios. So I showed the spaghetti picture earlier, and portfolios is I think of them as unraveling the spaghetti. So this picture on the left, the picture on the right shows a picture of polycentric governance, meaning that you are looking at the same land area from different perspectives. So you have the social networks going on there, and maybe you're looking at the rivers and the trees and stuff like that. And this picture on the left is from Climate Kick, where Inna is working, and they have this visual portfolio where they have mapped out the impact goals. So what does Climate Kick want to have an impact on? Then they've mapped out the leverage points and capabilities. So how does Climate Kick seek to make an impact? And then they have connected the projects and actor networks that they fund to the bottom level. And it looks really cool. So here are the levers of change. These green ones, the blue ones are impact goals. I guess Inna will be speaking about these more in her presentation later on. And then the cool thing about this portfolio view is that you can then identify all the projects that are related to these, and then possibly bring together the people who are related to the different topics so that they can, you know, learn from each other, and maybe possibly through that have more of an impact together. So that was the theory. Yeah. So now we know what the unicorns are saying about innovation ecosystems and so forth. So I thought I'd tell a little bit about a case I'm working on currently. So I think I didn't mention in the beginning that I'm working on regional development projects in academia, which means that I'm not a researcher, I'm not a teacher, I'm creating new know-how and trying to push it out to the practitioners. And one question we're working on is how can we support SMEs better in the Helsinki-Uusimaa region with digitalization and AI? And the current situation is that, yes, we do have an ecosystem, but we are, you know, we have these scattered clusters that are really beginnings of ecosystems, and people know just the people and just the organizations that they know through their own relationships. And if you think about what a system shifting network, a systems shifting ecosystem might look like, it's something where different organizations, you know, share different type of goals, and they have different shared approaches and the capacity to, you know, operate on the right side. So the question we're working on currently is that how do we, you know, what is the first things that we could do to bring the ecosystem together to create a better context for it? And here's like a process we've developed. So it's based on the design double diamond, because we have a lot of designers in our organization. but we're applying it to building a very early stage ecosystem. So we have the problem space, which means that where we want to identify the ecosystem actors, understand what they're doing, what their visions are, and then bring them together so that we could, start creating the foundations for further collaboration. Second phase is we're going to be organizing a series of workshops to the people who we think are relevant to, shift this system of AI support services for SMEs. And after that, in these workshops, we're going to be developing a purpose for this ecosystem and identify certain areas of effort and leverage points, and discuss how we're going to, govern this ecosystem and start building, the foundations of a portfolio, and also identify this type of backbone organization or orchestrator. So who could, take the long-term perspective to support all the different organizations in what they're doing, and the output of these workshops is going to be some kind of defined ecosystem organization, meaning that we have some organization that is willing to be an orchestrator, and we're also going to be writing a report so that we can communicate what this ecosystem wants to do, and also invite them to other organizations to join it. And the fourth phase of what we're doing in this project is to establish a portfolio, apply for funding, and hopefully be able to launch programs and projects so that we can actually put the vision and the strategy that we're defining in the previous phase to action. So here's just an internal document. It doesn't look really fancy, but we were looking at. So I was showing the diversity of the different stakeholder groups picture earlier. So we just had this type of framework where we were trying to identify research and development organizations, funders, companies, and other types of organizations that are working in the area. And we were trying to identify certain organizations that we should understand better through interview, through desktop research, and other ways, so that we could, start mapping all the actors in the space and their efforts. And we also used open data. So the regional development money, because it's public money, we can get it as data forms. So we were able to map all the AI-related regional development projects and their actors together. And this is like a clickable prototype on Kumu. So you can, when you click on the link that is on the page, you get to the full information about each project. So this helps us identify a lot of the partners and a lot of the efforts that have been done. And it also is a basis for our discussions on what we should be doing next, because we can see what has been funded earlier. So what has been done previously, and the next question is what we should do next. And here's a picture of what we're planning as the interaction between these activities. So we need to, of course, understand the needs of that SMEs. We're going to be organizing a few workshops for them. And we have these core group workshops, which means that we're going to be, discussing the vision and purpose, governance, future opportunity, establishing a portfolio, road mapping and funding. And we're going to be supporting, these workshops with this ecosystem mapping that we're doing. And a big part of, once we get those workshops rolling, a big part of it will be that we will have, within each workshop, certain sessions where we're going to be building relationships, trust, and commitment between these partners. And one great comment I heard a while back from a person who participated in these type of workshops was that now he has a friend, so in Finland, we have these quiz television shows where you can, call a friend if you don't know the answer and ask the friend. So he was saying that, yeah, now I have, 20 friends who I can call whenever I have a question related to this. And I think this is the main point, that if we are able to build relationships between the different people that are like this, that you trust the people, and when you have a new project idea or you have a question, you know who to call, who the right person is to call, then I think we have succeeded. So I think that might be even the bigger part of this process than the definition of the ecosystem. Another case I'm working on is supporting the early regional ecosystem development in circular economy. So in the Helsinki-Uusimaa region, we have about 68 programs, 120 million in funding, over 300 program partners working on circular economy, and we really don't know, what other players are doing. So we're trying to support a similar process, in this area, and it's really interesting. Circular economy is really interesting because, for example, the things that you are recycling or trying to, create the flows between, they are very different. So, for example, the question of what the scope of a circular economy ecosystem should be is really interesting. So we've been talking with the plastics industry, and from a normal person standpoint, you think plastics. Okay, plastics is one thing. You just take them. You put your plastics together and you take them somewhere, and somebody does something to them. But actually, plastics are very, very specialized. So not all plastics can be recycled and reused in the same manner, which means that in Finland, sometimes when they are gathering plastics, they have to take them all the way to Ireland to be refined and reused and put back into action, which is really interesting. And then on the other hand, we've been talking with the soil and rock reuse industry, and they're like, well, when we're developing certain land areas, we put the soil and rock into the trucks, and we have to pay for the diesel that takes it. Soil and rocks, it weighs a lot, which means that you won't drive your trucks to Ireland very easily, and the ecosystem that they are looking for is very, very local. So they really don't want to drive the soil and rocks over 3 kilometers, which means that this is a good question, that what types of ecosystems do we need actually? How do they work? Because we don't need only one circular economy ecosystem in the region, but we probably need many that are related to the different type of tasks that are at hand. Last point I wanted to make is, what's the real work like? So you had the theory where the unicorn is thinking about stuff, and I had some initial ideas on what you could do in practice. But I think what we've noticed is that organization-centeredness is really entrenched. So a lot of organizations, they like to use these big words: systems change, sustainability, circular economy, ecosystems, innovation. But still, the ways they operate, it's a lot like in this picture from Tom Fishburne. I wonder why nobody is really interested in our open innovation program that we published on our webpage. So and I think that talks a little bit to, like, in this conference you were listening to Indy speak, and Indy has these big visions, and he has the ability to visualize how the systems should be changed in practice to work. And I think we are certain type of people in this conference who are thinking maybe about the world in this type of way. And then when we start talking with normal people, we start putting the systems in their mouths, and hoping that they will understand all the different angles that we are talking about, and and so forth. But I think the feeling that they usually get when we come with our swords and so forth, that hey, I'm trying to do my work, and come on, go away. So a little bit like Indy Johar in this, Indy Jones in this picture. So, like, as a systems community, what we want is for people to understand the big visions, the systems we're talking about. But really, I think the challenge that we have working with normal people and normal organizations is that we really have to start by making it really simple, and holding people's hands, and talking to individuals, talking to people in different type of groups, and doing actually the work to make this new type of knowledge that we're trying to push forward. into something that is good and operational. This is a picture from Dave Gray. So like I said, we have to somehow be able to bring these systemic perspectives into all the interactions that we have with individual people and teams and so forth, so that someday we might have an environment where we might be able to grow these systemic approaches and a world that might look more like this. So thanks.